Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Empower Podcast. We are here with another guest coming to you from
Tampa, Florida.
Tell them more about you. Who is this guest, this mystery guest?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aspen Noonan. I am the CEO of Elevate Holistics. We do online medical marijuana cards in 18 and growing states. I am from St. Louis. I grew up in a smaller town than I live now, regular American girl, private school. I didn't know much about cannabis. I'll start there. And throughout college, I was, exposed to the drug as many people are. And I realized it's life-changing, and this is what I want to do with my life. So immediately out of college, and in college, I joined NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And this organization connected me with so many patients, advocates, and business people to put me where I'm at today, which is running a successful telehealth clinic. And I'm also a mom of a 1-year-old baby girl. She consumes...
Straight to acknowledgement. Take it away, Aspen.
Yeah. She's my whole world. She is, my legacy and why I do what I do. But at the end of the day, helping people and being able to be a part of patients' healing journey, I just couldn't imagine a better thing to do with my time.
Wow.
That's me.
In the acknowledgement here, I do want to see this because at least from what I'm getting from it, it's just interesting too. I guess we'll get into it, what's happening in healthcare too. But with your experience too with cannabis, you've seen that not only did you have your experience, but I don't know at what time or at which time you had your experience or which one. Not that it does matter, but at some point along in the timeline of using cannabis, there was this want to share it and to make a difference. From what I'm getting, from what you're saying, I don't know, care where it was, at what time, where you were. Something just happened. The nut just cracked, right? And it's not that we're nuts. No, if we are, we're a pecan, or you pick the nut you want, as long as it's not a peanut. I know some people that are allergic, and that's okay. But either way, and it's that aspect of the sharing. I mean, I don't know from anybody. We'll go straight into what's happening in healthcare. From what I've seen too, even as a nurse, I don't know a whole lot of drug abusers for even stuff such as fentanyl or even ones we don't even know or can pronounce. Let's just start there. We don't of those that want to go back and then share it with somebody else. Majority of the time, they just want to find it and use more of it for themselves. It's this selfless cycle. So after your share as to what it is we've gotten to this part of the conversation, Aspen, what in your opinion is happening in healthcare?
That's a great question. In healthcare in general, I mean, the holistic healthcare I can definitely speak to. It is highly regulated, but not highly enforced. So we're in this interesting game of there are so many laws about, which plants you can consume, whether or not that's legal in your state, what kind of repercussions you're going to get, how you can access medicine. Is it a dispensary? Is it, through a prescription, or is it a recommendation? There is just so many different rules in so many states. And then once you're actually in it, no one exactly owns the cannabis space, right? So who is enforcing this? Obviously in California, we know that's the Drug Enforcement Agency. We know that's the DEA. That's not the case in other places. So is it the healthcare? Is it the healthcare department that's in charge of these things? Is it the pharmaceutical department, like in Louisiana, where it's pharmacists as opposed to nurse, other people? So when it comes to who is enforcing these holistic things, while it's so important to err, obviously, on the side of caution, we don't know. So that's something we face every day, is finding out exactly what the laws are in every single state to provide patients with cannabis, correctly with their state forms, but also making sure people get access at the end of the day, right? We're telehealth. Telehealth isn't legal everywhere. And so we're just constantly fighting those changing laws and staying on top of it so that patients can get legal, with a trusted provider at a great price. I mean, that's literally it.
Yeah, that's truly what it is. And that's only one of the things I think, and there are many, I think health and wellness, healthcare is one of the, again, we were talking of nuts earlier, one of the toughest nuts to crack too. And what we're up against is the conversations that each state is having with each other, first of all, within itself, and then the conversations which either are being had or are not being had at the state-to-state level. Meanwhile, overhead, there's this umbrella of the federal saying you can't do that here. So it's like, I know,
Yes.
and then that's what we're up against too. If we don't, it's like they're still having these discussions based upon this bully or spook. I guess I'll say it beyond this. It's been a spook, and I'm not here to taunt the law. I'm not here to incite crime. But for some reason, these states have been able to make movements, and we're at over 35 plus. I want to say I can definitely throw out at least 35 plus.
Yes.
On the medical side, recreational I know is still at its own, or non-medical wherever it is you are at too. So distinctions even there in linguistics. We had mentioned in just before we kicked off too for the episode is out of Ohio they're not allowed. Like, dispensaries are not allowed to call it. They're not allowed to call it recreational. They have to call it non-medical. And I also discovered this: they're not allowed to have food trucks outside of the dispensaries. They don't want people to be able to assemble. Which last I checked, according to another big document, which is also federal, it says we're allowed to assemble. So I think we're up against this state versus fed in more than one pocket, right? Because
Absolutely.
when I was on assignment as a registered nurse over in Oregon, there was a spot not too far. It was in downtown Eugene, and I went to it. Yeah. It's called Jamaica Joel's. I know. We'll see if they do something. This is the first shout I've ever given to any dispensary on the podcast. But
Hey.
yeah, I know, right? But they had a food truck, and it was a rotating one too. So it wasn't just like you were saying, whether it's one person or none somehow magically that own the cannabis industry or somehow have funds distributing through transactions is the best way I can say it. And upon a ledger somewhere for products that we know are being rendered and are beyond just a plant nowadays. You know, there's even, that's the thing too, is there's all these different discussions, and specific states all want to be, I'm different. But yet it's amazing that,
They wanna,
right,
yeah.
that all of our bodies though do have these areas of relatedness that seem to inflict or not line up with state legislation. And that's even on the conscious level.
Absolutely. There are some states that you can't have flour, but you can have edibles. And what if, someone's liver doesn't digest the enzyme in order to feel the effects of cannabis,
Or overfeel them. I know someone who literally their first experience, because they did not want to smoke cannabis, their first experience was they tried a 5 milligram. Well, it was 10. The person cut it in half. They had 5. Yeah. But still, they had the psychedelic experience, which I still think you can have with marijuana at a point where with other plant medicines that are out there too. And it's amazing. We're again, I don't know how to say it beyond saying it. I'm glad we're still talking about cannabis, but that has been its place for like decades. Cannabis has been like the focal point. What's interesting too is the distinctions with like Oregon and other states too is they're looking at the other areas of plant medicine, and they're looking at the other 60 or was it 70 neuro receptors in our brain for what's called cognitive liberty. Which last I checked, even whether religious or not, spiritual or not, according if you're in the United States. Last I checked, we also have the freedom for spiritual exploration. So, and some people have had those breakthrough moments, if that's what they're looking for, Aspen, of course.
Absolutely.
And that even there can be healing too. Yeah.
Exploring psilocybin, the psilocybin industry is on the rise. I mean, whether it's telemedicine laws or whether that's just people in Colorado hosting, they call them retreats, but in,
No, distinctions. Yeah. Nothing wrong here too.
It's tripping. People are tripping in groups. Mm-hmm. But what it's done for groups of veterans and people with PTSD, I mean, the fact that they're withholding this from people is not. They're
not. So they are, but they're not. I'm glad it's how it's going there, because I guess in the defense spending bill now there's finally funding for psychedelic research with veterans. So
yes.
But it's not talked about. That's not in the news. I get what you're saying. It's not the conversation, and that's what should be there in the focal point, so people can think for themselves, make their own health and wellness decisions. Because last I checked, I know somebody who was on amphetamines all the way back in college, and they'd been on them for over a decade. When they finally went to nursing school, they learned about this thing's called side effects. And most of the general public doesn't know beyond nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea for side effects, and that's okay. But the side effect for Adderall was sudden death.
Yeah.
It was heart attack.
That's actually how I got into the cannabis space myself. I was on Adderall from 8 to 18. So it was, basically my childhood was spent on speed. And that was normal to me. And when I started consuming cannabis in college, I realized I could take less. And then I just kind of balanced them out up until, I haven't taken an Adderall in over 10 years. So it was life-changing really for me. And that's just, it's a small story because it's like, okay, this girl has ADHD, but it's very life-changing for a lot of
Aspen,
people.
I'm going to interrupt you. It is not a small story. That story, I think, is for the past graduates of any college or university over the last probably 25, I'd say I'm honestly going to go all the way back to the 80s, because I still think there are people who went through different schools and whatnot, and their drug of choice was the legal one that you could get, that you could put on the table, and it's even in documentaries. Like speed was literally like M&Ms on a kitchen table.
That is like I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I'm not saying you can just go into the store and get it, but like we have all these regulations that we know as our automatic mechanic, right? For FDA and narcotics, like I have to count drugs and everything. Sometimes it was a conversation, who you knew in the family, who was dying, right? Who was dying, you'd go there for the morphine. Like it was all a conversation back then. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
And addiction looks different if it's around addiction, but you mentioned quality of life from that. And I want to always emphasize that, especially when it comes from any drug. Because I think that's the overall concept, is to either improve quality of life and not put you back as to where you were.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, it's what's called inefficient, usually. And I'm here for progress, not perfection, obviously. We're using plant medicines that have, believe it or not, been used for thousands of years. But it seems our conversation and what we know, and what we know we don't know, what we don't know we don't know, might be what's called the control of knowledge around that. And we're all curious.
It's amazing what doctors and these astound scientists are saying, and it's that we don't know things, and we do. We have an endocannabinoid system. Is that in the traditional medical books?
I did not learn about that in nursing school. We had the lymphatic system, thankfully, but that was still 1 day was spent on that. Yes, and they just discovered a new cannabinoid. I believe it was in South Korea. So there's only one of the 200 some that we potentially think are in there. Yeah, mine. I know. I'm glad our minds are both blown.
Not a whole system that our body can regulate with plants isn't taught.
Yeah. Here, check this out. You know what I did learn about though, in whether it was American history school or just world history, was this thing called the Opium War, and it was this war that was fought around a drug. Wow. And I wonder where the drug came from. A plant, right? Another one. Yes. So it seems to be these reoccurring themes. But in the meantime, right? In the meantime, while this war on drugs is going on, there's still the quality of life, and regardless of what it is we want to say, there will still be people that will use, whether it's cannabis, whether it's psilocybin, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's heroin, any of them, or even the ones we don't even know that are digits, that are letters, that are just numbers. Like there's all these different, mainly psychedelics, by the way, folks. If you didn't know all that, a lot of those psychedelics, but still, the thing is being able to I don't know if this how your experience was, because I think I looked up too. Was it University of Missouri that you went to? Okay,
yeah, I went to,
but they had a
zoo in Central Missouri.
Yeah, awesome. Shout out
Shout out to the zoo.
There you go. But they had a specialty on medical cannabis. Is that?
So I have a health science degree, and now they might have that because I mean honestly because of what my class did, but we brought NORML into Mizzou and really just united the local cannabis industry, local lawyers like Dan Beats. Shout out to Dan Beats. And we changed the laws. We went with Amendment 2. That's what it was back in 2019. I was out there getting signatures with everyone else.
Wow.
And that's medical went, legal in Missouri. And I'm so happy I was part of that. I mean, it was my passion at the time. So to see it come to fruition was like very immediate.
That's
satisfaction.
surreal. Like you're literally in school while this is all happening. Like you're literally in a history book, like literally somewhere. And you'd be like, I was there. Like, yes, or I've been there.
I'm waiting for the pictures to come up in 10 years.
Wow. But to see the access to, I think, what's the big conversation here within Ohio, too, is they passed the legislation. This is also what is what's happening in healthcare is they passed the legislation. They have an agreement. The conversation seemed to be all the T's crossed and I's dotted at that time. I'll add in at that time. Yeah. But now they want to go back and change like concentration, how many plants you can grow. They don't even want to talk about what's called an extended plant count out in Colorado, which I don't even think that exists here in Ohio yet. But you're right. It's like if we have if all these other drugs are being regulated, like I mean I'm a nurse. I've done shifts. Like I've worked in facilities where I have to count the drugs beforehand. Like I know there is protocol for stuff. So like where's the national? That's the same question. Where's the federal protocol? We're seeing a bunch of state protocol that is allowed to not match up and create chaos, in my opinion. So, and confuse people, because I think the law is supposed to be understandable, last I checked, at least to the common person. Right. Accessible is one thing, but to see the overall pouring into quality of life, I'm always going to come back to this one. And to see that out of Missouri, and to see, because I've stopped through Missouri, and it was after they did legalize, and I actually felt inclined going cross-country, once I did stop there and purchase cannabis there, to finally smoke an actual joint out on the street, and it was nothing wrong here. And so at the same time too, but it depends on where it is you're at. I guess out in Canada you can't do that. But also maybe I couldn't have done that there either. But at the same time too, I didn't harm anybody. I didn't raid anybody's fridge. I didn't steal anything. I'll make all these declarations in addition to all this in case peers need to know. So
Right.
music became really, really
Everything was
cool.
okay.
Yeah, music became really, really cool. I wanted to be nice to people. Like, if I have to say any of those side effects that came out, there they are. So, and they happened.
Have you seen what they're doing in Texas? How it's medically legal in Texas. They have wax. You can get a medical card there, and they're trying to undo their cannabis laws, which unfortunately is just providing more business to the cartels. People aren't going to stop using cannabis. They're going to stop using it legally.
You're up to something.
It's so unfortunate. Their premise is we don't want children to be around it. And I think making it illegal increases that risk. And it's really sad what's happening out there. So, I mean, it's backwards compared to what all the other states are doing. So to say, how wildly different Colorado is moving into psilocybin, their cannabis industry is established. And then we have Texas who's taking a step back. It's just wild.
Right. Meanwhile, their citizens will cross state borders. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say what it is, and people will literally have to and it's violating law. I'm not going to break it, but these people are literally violating law for their own quality of life to take a stand. And if we don't say it, Aspen, like, it is what is so. And I'm not condoning it, nor are you. And I get that from you, right? We're not. But you see that, right? But yeah.
If you live in Texas, you can get a Louisiana medical card. You can't travel over state lines with the cannabis, but as a Texas resident, you can get a Louisiana medical card and purchase cannabis in that medical only state. So,
I did not know that. Yeah. Anything helps.
Legal. That's pretty cool.
I want to acknowledge not only you, but Elevate Health. It's Elevate Health, correct?
Elevate Holistics.
Excuse me. Elevate Holistics for taking that stand for accessibility. And to see that what it is you're up against is literally just as you're doing it, you're developing not only what it is you're up to in the industry, but also being able to have conversations even such as this, because I think it's conversations with people in specific rooms that really truly make change, whether they're an individual or even small groups. Because to merely think that small groups can't change anything, well, it's merely the only thing that ever has so far. So, but it's just what it looks like, and it's amazing to see that at the state level, from what I'm getting, that it seems politicians they want to have their own conversation amongst themselves, but not their peers. But last I checked, if anybody is indicted for a law or any of it, whether accused or whatnot, it's up against the peers. So, and it's a conversation too. I mean, I've done shout outs on social media just saying like, hey, lower your prices if it's inaccessible. Like make these things here. Like there's still things that people are up against. And some people don't want to use specific drugs. Some people have been to rehab and they've looked into stuff. Some veterans, they made their stand when they were in the service. Matter of fact, they might even have used back in Vietnam when they were in the service too, because it was however that was accessible. I'm not saying how it was, but I'm saying from what it seems, there's a common conversation, right? Somehow it was there and it was accessible. So
I love that you said create conversations, because there's something I like to call the green closet. And coming out of the green closet, I think a lot of people are scared to talk about the fact that they use cannabis or their family members used cannabis and it saved their lives, because it's controversial, and it doesn't have to be. The more we talk about it, the more it's going to be socially accepted, just like having a glass of wine. I think that it's actually a lot less risky. So the more we talk about it, when we leave our green closets, the more people's lives can have a better quality.
Wow. I love that picturesque look at it. That really is the way to kind of see it. And then it'll also help with the narrative coming up here next month with having to do with closets. So I'm glad we have distinctions that we can share beyond this all. So look
so funny.
look what you just did. That's awesome, and I love it. And nothing wrong here. So, but to see the overall concepts and to see that it seems both of us had our breakthroughs back in the college level, and I'm sure statistically even we were the high risk people for drugs. But it's amazing to see what came out of that and which ones still stayed and which people still are doing whatever it is that they were still doing, or the impacts that happened. I mean, you're literally managing a company. There's the post that goes about on X was you can't smoke weed and be successful. And the theory is, but it's the anti-narrative that they're playing on, right? The purpose is at least to have it be that conversation, because that's literally, like you said, generationally what we're all up against is there was these spooks behind it. And I think what it is that we're also up against it, and it's influencing the quality of life. It's influencing the accessibility, is being able to have the peers know that voters said it's okay. Wherever it is you're at, whether it's medical, non-medical, rec, and to hold them accountable for that, Aspen, to hold the elders who above us had the spooks, because maybe it is through non-violently, This is my theory. Non-violently, by accountability, because that's what worked before with their parents. And I'm not here to say do it. And if you're doing it violently, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing it, correct. Do it with peace. Yes. If you're going hunting, in this case, bring honey. Don't bring vinegar. That's all I will say. But and to have that, because it's amazing to see. I honestly wonder if it's almost like the breathing down the shoulder thing that people talk about in life, that we all have wherever it is in different areas. But it can be the ancestor or whatnot that's not here, whether they're here or they're not. It's still a conversation in their head.
You feel the presence.
Right. And it's a story. In my opinion, it's a story because it's not what's really happening. And it could be that reorientation of just saying, like, first of all, voters said that it's okay, right? Because if anything, then they're breaking the law, not allowing you to do it, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that they're condoning or they're an enabler, but if that is the way for alcohol, in a similar way too, and I'm glad you said it, because it is similar to Ohio's approach. Is they're treating it like alcohol. But I agree with you too. I will say, as a second, that I still think between the two, when it comes to operating motor vehicles or being able to walk down a street and just being able to have a normal conversation and be conscious with that, I think I've seen a lot more results with cannabis than I have with alcohol. My last drink, and I'll declare it again, was January 18th of 2023. If anybody is thinking about that and they're taking their own time, progress, not perfection, that was not done alone. So, and I'm not here for any kind of measuring. I'm here for sharing, because it's amazing. It's through sharing that I think we will all win too, whether it's through conversation, whether it's through experience, or whether it's that person who randomly said, here, try this. It's cannabis. I'll be right here. I'm not running away. I'll be here for your experience,
Wow,
so.
Congratulations. That is an amazing accomplishment. That's very, very cool.
I'm thankful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's day to day, Aspen. So, it's moment to moment. And it's just that aspect of being able to share and see. But I can say definitely plant medicine has definitely had its impact. And I've seen at the bedside people who, I'll never forget, I'll say this one too before we close. We close this and we'll close with the empowering quote, because I don't know if I've shared about Franny before or not. But I had a patient back when I worked on a dementia unit in Ohio. And Franny had an order for Ativan, and she had an order for Tums, and she had an order for beer. Mind you, I was still drinking at the time, and I knew the side effects that can happen with specific patients, and they don't, because specific drugs don't work for everybody. It's not a one size fits all. So I found out, reading Franny's charting, Ativan I felt was inefficient. I charted that. She had the order for beer. It was 2 a.m. She was screaming at the top of her lungs. I told her it was her birthday. I said, would you like to be able to have a beer? She said, yes. I was like, well, let's take some Tums just in case. And she said, okay. Within an hour, if not that, Franny was asleep. So it's to see, even then, if we look into plant medicine, we can still look into alcohol too, because even back in ancient Greece, they used it too. It's just the directions were to water it down. You were considered mad if you drank it straight, first of all. But second of all, a lot of it, even back into ancient Egypt, comes from hops. So it's this weird conversation with these plants that somehow existed way before from what we know of us, and we want to say these can't be here. They can't be in the limelight. They have to be the odd card or the wild card or the outlier, and they can't be what everybody wants or wants to be able to look into. They can't be anything of interest. And to that I say that was what was so, and that is not what is now. We're in a renaissance, Aspen, and I'm glad to be a part of this. I really am.
It's the best time to be alive. We get to see, plants become legal again. We get to see, that. And every single industry is growing so fast. Our minds as a collective are the smartest generation that's ever, this is my opinion, of course, that's ever walked the planet. We are just doing things so fast. I think that we're going to have flying cars in our generation, to be honest. So I think that we're going to see all of it. And I think that, we're very lucky.
Yeah. And I want to add this in, as we did discuss cannabis and any plant medicine. You have your own views on mine. I'm a big proponent for adjunctive therapy. I think that they will not, again, be a one-size-fits-all. They're not the only thing to do. The work still needs to be done in whatever way that it is, and there's no rush on it. But I do, and as I am a big believer, whether it's psychedelics or cannabis, or even if you choose the traditional route, and that's what it is you choose for the rest of your life, and that is your own decision, and I get that, but I still think you should still look into adjunctive therapy, which, if you don't know what that means, it means you're not just using the drug. It means you're also using the therapy.
Multiple. We need it's a multifaceted healing process.
Oh my gosh. Oh, don't forget the team part. You're up to something. The multidisciplinary aspect. Correct. Including your telehealth aspect that you're a part of. Yeah. Wow. And if somebody hasn't already said it, I'll be one of the first to say it. Welcome to health and wellness, Aspen. Welcome to healthcare. And each time you expand to a new state, when things change, just if you could remember, welcome. And for anybody
Yes,
too.
I love that. Thank you.
So, would you?
Okay, my quote, I'm
Yes.
so excited for it. It's been the topic of our conversation this whole time, whether it's about sobriety or being an entrepreneur in business. And that's done is better than perfect. Just do, complete it. Nothing has to be perfect. 99% of people won't even get it done. So perfect, throw it out.
Yeah, and see what happens. Wow, I love that quote. Say it one more time so everybody knows, and then we'll close.
Done is better than perfect.
I love it. This has been another successful episode of the Empower Podcast. Thank you again, Aspen. Love to have you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye for now.